Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get to use it 2 days or something last year.
Hopefully they'll fish by then. That, there to help that.
All right. I'm all set on this end. You good, Marie? Okay, we're good when you are, Nan.
Okay. We'll begin. Welcome, everyone, to the North Logan Planning Commission meeting. We will have I guess I will give an opening prayer and Dwight will do the pledge. I guess we'll do the prayer first. I can never remember. You think I would remember?
We do pledge first.
This is the July 7th, 2022 Planning Commission
Yep.
meeting. Okay.
Pledge first.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be able to meet together tonight in this city meeting. We are thankful for this good city in which we live. We're thankful for the people, the citizens that live here, for the people that work hard to make this a good place. We're grateful for the moisture that has come to our city and pray that we might be able to have enough to get through the season. We pray now that thy spirit can be with us, that we can be able to work well through the issues, that we can think clearly and be able to talk things out and to make good decisions for our city. We're grateful for the opportunity to be able to be here and work together. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, we need a motion to adopt the agenda. Anybody have a
I move that we adopt the agenda for the night's meeting. Aaron Hoyt. Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to adopt. Heron and Dwight seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I don't think we have minutes, do we, Marie? Oh. I missed seeing those today. So did anybody read the minutes for April 14th?
Those are the ones you just sent out this week, right, Marie? Oh.
Yeah. Maybe we should wait until next meeting. So can we move it one more time, Marie?
I mean, I saw them.
I don't think anybody's
No one else.
read through them. I read through them quite a while ago. So I don't know what would the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Wait,
Just wait.
Okay.
I mean, I read.
we'll do it next meeting. Any follow-up issues, Spencer?
No follow-up issues on here. I'll have some discussion items down near the end, but nothing right here.
Okay, then let's move. Actually, I have to say it's been nice to just have one meeting for a while. We'd like to thank Smithfield for that idea. Okay, let's move on to item number 1. Discussion and possible recommendation of the active transportation plan for North Logan.
Okay, so this one we've discussed a few different times. It's been a process. It was outlined as like a 2-year process. Lloyd Sutton, master's student up at Utah State, took this on as his thesis and worked very closely with us along with other partners in the county, Utah State, and several others for this active transportation plan, which is going to be really, really helpful for funding sources. A lot of things you have to have one now, and for a lot of different things. It's been a great process, but it's finally finished and wrapped up. He's actually graduated, defended his thesis, and took a job down in southern Utah as well. But he sent this up to us as the final draft that was approved. And all that we got to do is recommend it on city council for their adoption. I can flip through and give you some of the highlights on it. There was a lot of work that went into this, a lot of both research in surveys, physical traffic counts, electronic traffic counters, cameras, getting crash statistics, data. There was a lot of detailed work that went into this. And so the end product ends up being a prioritized list and a map and lines on a map of where we should go with infrastructure. But there's a lot that went into this, including several workshop meetings that the Planning Commission and City Council were a part of, if you remember some of those. So yeah, we had quite a few survey responses, a lot of different data and information. We decided where traffic count should take place with a big map on the board and in our first kind of Planning Commission City Council workshop. Got survey responses from different areas of the city. And it all kind of boiled down to a few different things. One is looking at the type of infrastructure that was preferred. And in physical counts and in surveys, one thing that was coming up significantly was this type of offset wide paved asphalt path, a multi-use path. Both gets heavy use and was rated very highly on surveys. Another thing is sidewalk gaps, which is something we have a lot of. Older subdivisions weren't required to put in sidewalk when they went in. So there's gaps between places we have sidewalk and places we don't. So those are two key things. There were other infrastructure opportunities that were outlined as well, but those ones really floated to the surface. And then this is just an example of some of the counts he did here. I'll zoom in a bit. He took a camera that recorded all day and went every time there was somebody in the frame, it would take a picture and count. He went and took all those pictures, stacked them all up, and just subtracted all the space outside of the people so that you're left with, if everybody was there all at once, what it would look like. And you can see there's a sidewalk on this side of the road. I'll zoom in a touch more here. There's a sidewalk on the south side of the road, and you've got a couple bikes here, but maybe two people walking on it there. And this is the mixed use path. This is 3100 North, and you can just see everybody stacked over there. So again, that's one of the data points we used. Similar thing here. Everybody stacked in that path. This is on 19th, or yes, 19th, right before Green Canyon. So kind of what floated to the top as far as recommendations. And I'll see if I can get down to the final map here. There's a lot, it's a lot of pages. I think one of the big things in here, these purple lines are multi-use paths. We've got 3100 North up here. We've got 2nd East Wolfpack Way there. And then these dashed lines are proposed. So basically what kind of floated up was having a box mixed use path kind of around the city for connectivity on 16th East, 3100, 2nd East, 1800. And then dissecting that with another mixed use path on 25th. So that everything kind of has a grid network. The green in there is sidewalk. And there are a lot of areas we need to fill in. Main Street's a big one on that as well. Just these gaps, you can see them all down. Yeah, that was one of the big things. He also took and prioritized them list-wise. So number one priority is this 16th East multi-use path. That's because of use, incidents, surveys, and then 1800 North would be second. Then you've got Main Street sidewalks, which we may start to get filled in through a CVTD study. So this is the plan. There's a lot to go through. There's 109 pages. We told Lloyd that it just barely made the cut. He almost didn't do enough. We almost made him fill in and add a couple more. No, in all honesty, he went above and beyond and just produced something really an incredible amount of work, which will be with the city for a while. So we can take action on this tonight. It's a recommendation. It would have to go to the city council for approval.
Okay. Any comments, anybody?
I have a question. Does the multi-use pathway, does that justify, or not justify, but does that satisfy the bike use
To not have a bike
demand
lane,
that we
is that what you're
have
saying?
from the community?
Yeah, so I think what he was finding, and he kind of took this from the images and from the surveys. Let me go back over to some images, we can show it. What he was finding was you have some bikes that will use these paths. This is Second East, this is probably as good an example as any. Some bikes will use this path. So you've got a bike here and a bike up there. You've got a couple, but a lot of them, especially people who are, say, recreational cyclists, who are riding a really nice road bike. They're riding with a group. Because the paths go up and down on driveways, they're not as long of a stretch as they would like. They typically will ride either in the road or in the bike lane. So you kind of need a mix still. But for the people just trying to ride around the neighborhood, for kids trying to get to a park, for kind of more casual bike riding, they will go on that mixed use path more than a sidewalk, than a typical sidewalk. And it is a little safer than a sidewalk. So you can see a couple cyclists here wearing really tight, slick clothes. And then you've got a few strollers, you've got some bikes mixed in over here, just more casual riders. So kind of both.
So Spencer, what we're voting on today is to provide a recommendation to the city council.
Yep. So you could give a positive recommendation of the plan to the city council. There's not necessarily a time sensitive element. So if you wanted to noodle it and think about it for a while, you'd be welcome to. But you can also, if you're feeling comfortable with it, give a recommendation for them to act on.
And then does that commit the city council or the city to enact the proposal in the document?
Yeah, so this is basically a priority list as far as the infrastructure. It would be adopted as far as our trails master plan, active transportation master plan. But that priority list that it was given, and I'm trying to find that again, there's a lot of work in this. So it's interesting to read through those comments too, if you ever have the time to do that. It doesn't tie us to these, and there's not necessarily dates tied to these. It was just something that we wanted for our public works staff each budget year as they're looking at funding, as we have impact fees. We can take and knock these items off, but it does not commit funds. It doesn't commit the city to building it to tomorrow or going and getting bonds or doing anything like that. That's not how we'd want to do it. We'll start aggressively seeking for grants. And then just impact fees and other funding as they come available, we'll take out things on the list. But
So really our approval is just to say, we think this is a great idea. Here's a list of things the city can improve on when they have money available.
Yep. And the other
That's
thing it
our
does
only
too is it updates our plan in that if somebody develops along any of these sections, which we already have a plan right now, this is updating slightly this plan. If anybody develops land adjacent to, say, a mixed use path, they'll put in a mixed use path instead of a sidewalk. So it also kind of does that.
I am curious. So the 2,500, it showed 2,500 was like a intersection in it, but right now there's a lot of sidewalk, but that was just showing like that's how they can break off, or are they trying to change that to a mixed use path on 2,500?
So
Just wanted to make sure I understood what his.
Yeah, so 2,500 north, I'm trying to find that image again. 2,500 north is planned to be a mixed use path on the south side. Did I pass it?
Okay, yeah.
So yes, it is planned to change. There it is. So it is planned to change. Right now, there is some stretches of sidewalk.
Right.
That's planned to be changed on the south side to be an 8-foot wide asphalt path.
Okay.
Obviously, our priority won't be to go rip up the places we already have path. It'll be to fill in gaps first. But when we come down to it, having it be that asphalt path is important. I think one user group we got, width, it gets all the way to Elk Ridge. It goes past Greenville. It's a good kind of backbone. A lot more joggers would come, a lot more strollers come. There was asphalt and the width made a difference on the
I
use.
agree.
I think most of you haven't been, I think I'm the oldest one that has seen a lot of this before. He's been working on this a long time. And I don't know if any of you had a chance. This might be the first time you've seen it. But this is pretty impressive.
I
what
was
he's
gonna
come up
ask,
with.
is this, I see that it's
I
on
love it.
Google Drive. I don't see it. Is this shared with the whole planning commission on Google Drive?
It should
Mhm.
be, yeah, it
It's,
should
I
be in
don't-
there. And I can, yeah, I can send it out, email it again, just to give a little bit better link. And you're welcome to share this with anybody in the community as well, if anybody else is interested. It's a great plan, so.
Yeah.
Did he use this as part of his dissertation?
Yep,
No?
this was it. This was
This is
this was his thesis project that he used and defended. I was able to sit in when he defended it. And it was great.
Yeah.
A lot of good comments. And he was very thorough. A lot of people were asking a lot of difficult questions and that I wouldn't have thought of about his data sources, and that Strava is leaning more towards recreation, and how heavily is that weighted in your I was just sitting there smiling like, this is great. And Lloyd had all the background and information and had answers to all those questions. He
Wow.
dove into it really thoroughly. And we're really lucky to have had him work on this and have just a master's student work on this. These plans typically cost $50,000 for a city to complete. And we were able to do it for a very, very small fraction of that. And we were only paid a portion because the county chipped in and the university chipped in and things. And so it's been great.
Question, Spencer, why asphalt, not concrete on this path?
Yeah. So one thing we found was the use on asphalt was higher. So we have a couple 8-foot wide path sections on Second East and some other place. I think Second East is the main one. They don't get as much use. And from what we've heard on surveys and in the cameras, joggers don't like to run on concrete. So you kind of lose that. And people are more comfortable with the asphalt. I think as a whole is kind of what we were getting, and just it shows through the use. So that's why it was there. I think cost wise, asphalt may be slightly cheaper.
Changes all the time, but asphalt can be cheaper, slightly. I mean, it's not justified. Yeah, the statistics would show that you have higher use of asphalt.
Also, I wonder if that width makes a difference too. Like I know
With the-
personally, I love the asphalt trails because 3 friends can walk next to each other
Mhm.
versus 2. If we're with 3 of us, one's in the grass, someone's yard that they might not like us walking. So I wonder if that's part of it too, the
It's
width.
huge.
What about-
So
What about durability compared to asphalt and concrete?
I don't have too much. Do you know the comparison there, Alan?
We have to do surface treatment, so we'll have to treat the asphalt every 4 or 5 years or so, just like our roads.
Right?
Mhm.
I think, can we be ready to make a recommendation?
Now, we first saw this, a year
Oh,
ago.
yeah,
I think
Dwight's
we had
seen
a planning or a joint meeting with the city council
Mhm.
when we first reviewed this about a year ago, a little over. So I would, and I'm very comfortable with the thoroughness of it, and there's been some refinement subsequent to that time. So I would make a recommendation that we, or make a motion that we recommend to the city council to adopt this planning, active transportation plan
Yeah.
as submitted.
Do we
I
have a
second.
second?
Yeah,
A
Karen
second.
Hoyt, second.
Okay, so Dwight moved that we adopt the transportation plan. It's been moved and seconded by Heather and Heron.
Close enough.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great. I
And
think we were
Spencer, if you
lucky.
could share that again, I'm on Google Drive right now. I just don't see it.
I know,
So-
I wondered if I couldn't see that either.
Let me send
Why
it
not?
in. It's in the
He also
drive.
sent it in our, just with the agenda. It's there too.
Uh,
Oh,
noticed
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I didn't look at that.
Yeah.
I just see that,
Probably not.
I get the emails and then if I have to, I'd go to the drive. Last meeting we had, I went to the drive and got some things off that, but I didn't today. It just showed up in the email.
Okay.
So I
I'll-
have, like shared with me, I have county kennel permit, Clarkson Place subdivision, 5/5/2022, May.
So it's spotty on
Topics,
what's
but-
shared with you. Okay,
It
I'll
looks
have
like
to
it, but
I'll have to go back through and look at the drive and see what the shared permissions
Okay.
are.
Yeah.
And just make sure everybody's in shared with that 2022 one. I will make sure that transportation plan is in there as well, though. I apologize for that. I didn't know that there was a missing
well, no, I,
permissions there.
yeah, it's kind of
I see the
one of the
2020.
drawbacks of
Yeah.
sharing online is just getting all the permissions squared away.
Mhm. Yep, and I'll have to reach out to you, Kenny, maybe we'll get it sorted
Yeah.
and so we'll get it figured out so we can see everything. But
Sounds good.
Sometimes it takes me a while to work through it all when we go to the drive, but today was easy because I just got on the email. You just sent it with that stuff, so. Okay, let's move on to item number 2, a discussion about draft updates to the North Logan City Moderate Income Housing Plan.
Okay, so we've talked this pretty much to death. Basically, this is just the intro here is just moderate income housing plan for state requirements, trying to get this approved, especially in the next few meetings. Just wanted to make sure we were ready for a public hearing on this. Yeah, prior to getting that scheduled, make sure we were comfortable with there, or if there are any other options. I know Jeff, he's not here tonight, but had raised some concerns, wanting to know if we could do anything different from density. I didn't know if anybody else had looked through the options and had any modifications before we did a public hearing.
Question, if I could, Spencer, this is driven by the Utah legislator, is that correct? Legislation?
Yes, yep, we have to make an update because of the legislator.
Yeah.
And we have to choose from these options because those are the ones they gave us.
So and we talked about this before. My question and query, and I don't think there's an answer. Who do you decide? What do you decide is in moderate income? You know,
Yeah,
how do we go from there?
yeah.
So we should ask the legislature to define that for us.
Yeah, and it's going to vary widely from location. We provide numbers on our average median housing as part of it. But yeah, I think
I
It's
know,
tough.
it's just tough. It's
Yeah.
just,
so. Unless people see needs to change this drastically or change our strategies and goals, then I was going to go ahead and get a public hearing scheduled. I just didn't want to do that if planning commissioners weren't quite comfortable with where it was at and wanted to make some big changes before we took it to the public. So we've talked about it a whole bunch, but I just wanted to do a check-in.
I did
I-
look through the alternatives. I
Mhm.
don't love any of them, as we talked about, but
Right.
yeah.
I can't think of anything better than the plan we've put together, as long as we are just cautious in how large of a bite we take every year.
Right. And we
Agreed.
talked about that quite a bit. I think we're all agree on that.
Do we have a determination of what a moderate income is in North Logan?
Yeah, so as far as the determination, I think the most important thing is that we just follow the formula that they gave us. And whether or not that will produce a pricing point that is moderate income or not, I think we have to rely on the list they gave us, choose one of those strategies. And if that strategy doesn't work and doesn't provide that moderate income housing, we did what we had to do with the state to follow the requirements. So I wish it was a little more clearly defined. We had a little more pinned down goal, but we kind of have to work with what we've been given framework wise.
Mhm.
So, and hopefully the strategies do work to some extent, even if it's a small one, and even if just a few families can benefit from it, great, but we'll see.
This is fairly critical for future development and for developers themselves in terms of guidelines, and high density is going to be a major issue for us. So
Mhm.
yeah, we'll have to be careful.
Well, we added something, I can't find it right now. Well, I like what the front says, while also considering minimizing impact on the traditional rural character of North Logan City.
Mhm.
So that's a good thing to leave in there.
Yep. Yeah, and the key thing to note here is the action items part of this plan are not triggered with the passage of the plan. Basically, our timeline and strategies of like looking at the areas and considering rezone, considering density increases, those actual actions of approving that code change for a density increase or a rezone will happen during the year of the plan. And those are the times we'll be able to decide the size of the bite that Kenny was mentioning. So if we're changing the density in a certain zone from 8 to whatever, or from 4 to 5, we can decide how far we're going to go at that time, and also rezones. I tried to word it in ways that didn't commit us to it, that said we would do this, but just consider a rezone. It'll require us to sit, actually discuss, consider taking action on something, actually discuss, consider taking action on a few things. And those will come spread out through the year. So this plan passing is not automatically putting those into place.
Assuming this is eventually adopted by the city council, will there be a review by some agency of the state of Utah that will review the plan to see if it's for meeting the guidelines and criteria they established?
Yeah, so the Division of Workforce Services was established in this most recent legislature as the ones who would check all the plans. I will have to submit, or the planner will have to submit basically every year, every October, report on how we've followed through with our timelines and strategies, and list agenda dates and different things on those. And Division of Workforce Services will go through and decide if we're doing good enough. Right now, the only mechanism, or the only like stick that they have, is the funding, TIF and TTIF. They're state grant funding sources for transportation funds. The TTIF, incidentally, would be helpful, say, to put in that 16th East Bikeway. It's for bigger projects for active transportation. So that's the thing they'll use as, like, if we're not doing good enough, they'll make it so we can't get those. They aren't critical yearly funds that we get every year that we rely on. But if we do have big one-off projects, they're good things to apply for. We haven't utilized them a significant amount in the past, but it's good to keep that open. And so following our plan, just making sure we set a plan in that we can follow without being too detrimental, and just making sure we follow it. And I think we can follow this without destroying a lot of the character and everything of the city that we've built up.
Mhm.
So we have to have a public hearing for this too, you said,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, we'll have to have a public hearing for this one.
Okay.
So
So
Spencer,
we just
I'm-
have to,
quick question. I'm sorry, I haven't read through that, but is our city plan, do we have this as part of any development of a certain size that they have to have moderate income included in there?
yeah, we didn't go with that strategy. There were strategies that kind of had that angle. I don't know if it was that specifically, but we mostly went with things that the city can do. So the couple things we're doing is densities in mixed use zones, and we decided taking smaller incremental steps is better on that regard. Rezoning some of our really low density kind of pocket areas, or at least consider rezoning, and then ADUs, reducing the regulations for that. We thought maybe we could open up maybe some of the size for detached ADUs a little bit, allow people to have a little bit bigger buildings, or relax some of those things on our ADUs. So pretty small bites is what we're going for, and nothing with regards to requiring a certain number of affordable units.
Okay, I think, any other comments?
So I think you could hold the public hearing. Do we need
Okay.
to vote on that, or?
No
No.
action. This is a discussion item. I just wanted to basically hear if we're comfortable with it. I'll get the public hearing scheduled, and we'll get that held.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Sounds great.
Spencer.
Mhm.
Let's move on to item number 3, discussion and potential updates to the city code regarding parking requirements, the non-residential, for some non-residential uses.
Okay. So we had gone through, and Nan probably remembers this. I don't know if anybody else was around, but we had gone through our parking requirements for non-residential and updated them. A little background on this item, and the reason it's here is we had a development come through recently of a medical office on 4th. 4th East. And we have had enforcement and parking issues from day one. People parking up by that roundabout, different things as far as that medical office. And that parking lot, it's kind of compounded right now because we have contractors in there and people going because some of the medical offices are open. But it looks like face value, there's probably not enough parking on that medical office building baseline. So there are issues that's making it worse. Probably not enough parking, and people see that 4th East as a little more convenient. Looks like it's closer to the building. I think people think they're getting closer by parking there. It's a bit tough to find the entrances, kind of a compounding thing here. But basically the thing we wanted to look at and I wanted to discuss, because I don't know if people have had feedback from the community on this one. We just wanted to have an agenda item to review where we're at and where we were at when this was approved, so we can make sure we avoid any future issues with other parking situations for commercial uses. So basically, when we had that go through, the code was different. It was our old parking standards.
So when was it approved? Because I don't remember approving this.
Yeah, so that
This was
one
a long
didn't need a
time ago.
subdivision approved, because that was already subdivided back with the villas. It just needed to go through staff for building permit and site approval. And that's when I, as the planner, looked and checked the number of parking spaces. And there was some back and forth. And I can't remember the exact date that went through. Alan, do you remember the
was a-
building permit? It was
It was a
while
long
ago.
time ago. 'Cause
Yeah, it was a while
I
ago.
wasn't on the commission then.
Yeah, and we changed the parking code, not related to that, but we changed it
Yes.
after that was approved. So when that
Yeah.
was approved, the code was essentially based on the number of doctors in the medical clinic. And you need X amount of parking spaces per doctor. And the client or the people building came to us and said, hey, we don't know exactly how many doctors are going to be here. And so we basically told them, you give us a number on how many doctors and how many parking spaces that is reasonable. And they came back with a number. And you hope that when people put in their building that, I mean, this is something that they should want to have enough parking for their own business. But that doesn't necessarily always play through, which is why we have code like this. So they came in with a plan. They told us the number of doctors per our code. They had a number of parking spaces and everything penciled out and was fine until it got built. And we realized that it is not to the right number.
So did they just underestimate the number of doctors that would be there? Or-
Yeah, they may have underestimated, our numbers may have been bad for number of spaces per doctor. I don't think that's a very good measure, honestly, of number of spaces required, saying per doctor, because doctors are going to be different. You could have a clinic where you don't have a large number of doctors, but you have a lot of other staff and you handle a lot of people. So it just wasn't great code. And they may have underestimated in order to fit the building size they wanted without really thinking about how many parking spaces they actually needed. So since then, we've actually changed it. Our hospital is kind of close to that now, 1 per 2 beds plus 1 per employee at shift, but that's for a hospital. This wasn't approved as a hospital. This was approved as a medical clinic. I'm going to find it here, right here. There's a medical office. And there was another one that it would fit into too. Our categories kind of shifted a little bit with our parking code. So it's not exactly the same. But right here, this 1 per every 300 square feet is the new number. And that's the same as what Logan's is. And that number, so if they came in today, that they would have more, they'd have to have more parking spaces than they do now. Whether that's enough, I'm not sure. I wanted to bring this as an agenda item to the Planning Commission because I can dive into this a little more detailed and kind of look at other clinics, look to see if we need to. And what we'd have to do is create another category and say medical office is this. And maybe it's 1 per every 250 square feet. But I'd want to go through and look at a bunch of different medical offices, ones that have enough parking. Go through and look how many spaces they currently are using versus the square footage they have to see what number would have been appropriate down there. and kind of dial in a number. But I wanted to get a feel for what planning commission's appetite is on changing it, or if we're okay with this 1 per 300 square feet, if we want to look into this more. Also, there's the clinic, medical or dental. It is 250 right now. Sorry, that's the one I was looking for. So this is one it'd go under. So it'd be 250 square feet. Also, if there's anything that I want to do to look at any other uses, it's hard to be proactive because you don't know what's going to come in through the door. Will we get another medical clinic? I don't know. But I wanted to give an update and discuss it because I'm guessing, I mean, there's a lot of, it causes issues, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from it. So we want to make sure we're thorough and make sure it doesn't happen again. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like it would be better to err on the side of caution, maybe err on maybe a few too many parking spaces than too few, because like you say, we've made the mistake on both residential and non-residential new development, so that now it feels like you're driving an obstacle course sometimes coming up 18th North and then going through that roundabout on 4th East, because the Cove has a lot of spill over there, and then that medical complex does now. And, you know, there's kids walking up and down that road over to Greenville. So it is not great, the situation there right now.
Mhm.
I was gonna say, two of my doctors are in that medical arts building, and trying to get a parking spot there is
Nightmare.
not there.
Do they have any accountability at this point to park their staff somewhere else? Like what
Out on the
options
street.
are even available?
Yeah, I think there are a few things we can do enforcement wise right off the bat that our officers have been out. We've got areas close to the roundabout and close to the entrance they can't park. There is a sliver that they could still park on 400, but there's some space they can't. So those are direct things. Got signs out there for no parking, and it's just a matter of consistently enforcing it so that people know don't park outside these signs or else. The other things of where their staff park, we don't necessarily have backbone and code on it, but we may be able to reach out and work with them, just city to business, and say, hey, we want your business to do well. We've heard from a lot of your clients that they're having a hard time finding parking spaces. These spots out here are not going to be available. They will be ticketed. So what can we do as far as your staff parking situation, and finding a solution to that, and trying to find a way to accommodate that in the future. I don't know exactly the best ways. I know Alan has been working on a few things with that signage. It's come up in city council as well. I don't know if there's anything else that I missed as far as what we're doing on this one, Alan. Yeah, and that's probably the key thing, is if we can work with them and say, hey, we can get your staff to park in a different place, and it may be a coordination with another hospital or business close by.
Bike to work day, every day.
Yeah, then that could help. But we are a little bit limited. The time was before it got built, when it got approved. And unfortunately, our code was not clearly written. Thankfully, we changed it, not for that reason, but we've changed it since then. And we can look and make it more tight if we'd like to, and go a little bit more.
Spencer, what was the number of parking spaces that were approved
When they built that building? Yeah.
versus what's the actual now? What was officially approved?
Yeah. So as far as the parking spaces, they didn't change the plan. So the number that are built now is the number that was approved. I don't remember that number off the top of my head. I'd have to go back through the building permit, but I can do that digging.
Okay.
That would be a good baseline to say, hey, this is the number it was approved and is built. That's clearly not enough. This is what our current code would require. And if we determine that's also still not enough, this is what we propose to change that number to, in order to accommodate it. But they didn't change the plan or drop any spaces off from the time of approval to construction.
Okay, so what was approved is,
What
or what
is
is actually there was what was approved
Mhm.
initially.
Yes, and it did meet our code. Like I said, our code just wasn't good. It was vague. It was based on the number of doctors, which is hard when you're building a building, and kind of not relevant.
Yeah, and there's all
Not
different kinds
direct.
of doctors too.
Yeah.
So
Like
that
the
patient load
orthodontist.
changes back and forth.
Uh-huh.
And there's never enough parking places in any doctor's office. So
Do we,
it's like, it's good to address this.
And your one on the office that we're looking at now, that criteria, 1 per 300 square feet. That's one parking spot per 300 square feet of office space.
Yes, so this is, it's actually 250. I'd looked the wrong one. This would be a clinic, I would say. It would fall into that. So it'd be 1 per 200 square feet, and that's just of 200 square feet of building space.
Okay, that's the
So,
building.
so it would include the office space, waiting room, any of the staff space, all of that would be included as a baseline.
do we have the option of putting, I know on the active transportation plan, they put cameras out to count people.
Mhm.
Can we put cameras out to start gathering data on how many cars are actually parking on the road at any given time of day?
Yeah, that infrastructure was actually loaner equipment that he got lined up from Bike Utah. So we don't have that equipment in place. I don't know if they have anything similar to that. That was,
Oh, okay.
So the city can only enforce 100 feet from the access points to no park, but explain that to me.
Ours was only the sidetrack was 50 feet. So it went an extra 50 feet beyond that.
Okay, on both sides of the street?
No, just on both sides of the axle.
Oh, okay. So how about on the other side of the street? Do you have any,
We can't. enforce that.
can't do that?
No.
I know in that
Well-
building, there's doctor's offices, but there's also that allergy clinic. And they shuffle through a number of people during the day.
yeah.
So that increases their patient load a lot more than just having a doctor's office there.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest downfalls of that code. And I don't know when that code was written, that parking code, the original one that we updated. I'm guessing it had been there since the code first came in. It didn't seem like much had been changed. And that's one of the big downfalls, because like Nan said, there's all sorts of different kinds of doctors. And if they're seeing, their appointments are only 10 minutes long, they're seeing a whole bunch. That's a lot of people waiting for one doctor versus some other practice that maybe has longer appointments and less cars. So this, based on square footage number, is a lot more concrete and set. I've just probably got to do some testing, real world testing around clinics, and just look on Google Earth, maybe drive by a few, and do some counts physically. That may be the best way to do that besides the camera. Just do a physical count during the busy times of the day, and just make sure that our number is now going to be more appropriate than the previous one.
So these updates have already been approved to the city code.
Yes, so these were approved, and again, this was incidental. We didn't approve this because of the medical office. It had been approved and was being constructed, but there was nobody parking there yet because the building wasn't done. So we didn't know that there wasn't enough parking at that point. But we had changed this for other businesses to make it more clear. I think we had another application that was just confusing the way the parking was lined out. And so we just made it a lot more clear, either a square foot number, or you give an alternative plan in some cases if it's a widely variable business. So I think Nan was around here for that
Yeah,
when we did
were
that.
there. And I don't think it was was it a medical office? I
No.
don't think it was.
I don't think that one was a medical office. I think that one was maybe a salon.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, without the
salon.
data, it's hard to know if this is the right number, but I guess my gut feel is doctor's offices are usually pretty small, like smaller than 250 square feet.
Like an
So,
orthodontics office has
Yeah,
chair,
right,
chair,
yeah,
and you have a
so-
staff on
so I
every
feel like
single.
one parking spot per 250 feels like it might be a little
be so
too
small.
few still, but
Yeah. I'll check it because it includes all the hallways, all the everything.
yeah, that's true.
So
yeah.
maybe it balances out. I think the only way to check is to go in and count spaces and then draw around the building and get a square footage. And I can do that digitally. And I can come in with that information to the next meeting and have like a formal draft. I wanted to introduce this, give background, and just see if there was appetite to dive into this further. And
Would
we
it-
can come back to that.
Would it be silly to go into those office spaces and ask how many patients come through and how many staff they staff every day? Like you go into that allergy clinic and say,
Yeah.
how many patients do you usually have? How many staff do you have on? Then you know, and then you can look at the parking spaces and, I mean, I don't know, is
Yeah.
that a silly idea?
Well, we could, and I think probably a big part of that, maybe if we were working to, because this is all for stuff going forward.
Right,
this
I
change
just
in
wondered if
code
that's like a
For our
actual.
current,
yeah.
for our current problem, maybe that's a good strategy of going in and saying, hey, how many spaces are we deficit here? You have this many spaces. How many do you need? Like, and trying to figure out a way to put staff parking somewhere else. And we'll know how many spaces we need to relocate
Yeah.
as part of that. So that may be part of our strategy to continue to make that situation better.
Yeah,
That's already there. Because once they're approved and built,
yeah.
we can't go in now and say make more parking spaces, and they don't have room now because they've built it out and have their landscape and building and different things. It's something that this will catch any future development, and we'll have to just try to work hand in hand going forward, and enforcement and signage.
Yeah, and I think that's a key issue. If the enforcement happens, then sooner or later, patients are going to complain, and then they're going to have to work out a deal with the hospital across the street or something that doesn't have enough parking either. But I think enforcement, if we don't get lazy, if we keep doing that, that's really the only
Mhm.
solution we have.
Yeah, I
So-
think you're right. So, and they've been really good about it. The signage went up. They've been enforcing that really well, the police department. So it is getting better, like Alan stated, but it is still an issue that we need to continue to work on and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right.
They could have their employees put to the dirt field. That's our parking spot.
Yeah, if
Could they pay a rental
if they
fee?
can get
Lease the land.
coordination with the property owner and figure something out, it'd have to be a solution that's going to be year round, because the
Yeah.
clinic will be open year round, and it's only going to get worse, street parking if it's snowy and different things like that. So trying to whittle this down before we get to that time of year is going to be important. And we'll try to leave it open-ended and let them come up with a solution. But like Nan said, as long as we're consistent on the enforcement and on the road, it is going to help drive some change. But yeah, we'll have to keep working on it. It is an issue.
I don't think the doctor's offices are full yet.
Mm-mm.
No, they're
There's no
not.
construction.
There are a lot of building permits. A lot of building permits in right now to
Maybe next.
improve the individual spaces because they're owned by different doctors, different practices. But with that, there are a lot of large vehicles in the parking lot right now in contractors. So there will be more practices open, but I don't know if that necessarily is going to mean it makes it worse, or if when a lot of that larger equipment gets moved out of the parking lot, if that's going to make it better. I don't know.
So
We'll see.
we're doing this for future.
Mostly for future.
Mostly, because there's not a whole lot we can do.
Right,
But-
but we'll continue we'll do everything that we can. It just won't be as much ordinance side. It'll be working with the property owner and
Right.
enforcement.
Great. Thank you, Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what staff business and discussion? Spencer?
Yes, so the main thing that we have here is the employee party that I wanted to bring up. And this is the upcoming events. I'll make sure this is in the planning commission folder as well. Alan keeps this updated in the city council one. This is July 11th, so next Monday from 5 to 8, Red Neck Water Slide. It's usually a really fun time. If you've RSVP to Marie, that's fantastic. If they haven't, can they still? You can still, but probably come and tell her today before you leave. This is probably about it. A couple other things just to mention. The Burnout is happening in front of the HSC, which is the new name for the RSL building, Hanson Sports Complex. So that one is July 22nd. That one's a really fun time. Emily loves it a lot by her house. The
No,
Burnout.
I'm trying to, we're never home. I'm like, we're never. home.
Is this burnout where you're peeling
Uh-huh.
rubber and just
Yep. And
smoky tires?
yep, smoking out tires. Whoever gets the best wins, I think, a set of tires, which is pretty,
Wait, this is real?
yeah.
I
So-
definitely am missing this.
Yeah.
I've definitely missed this. I'm like, what is the burner? Oh my goodness.
They were expecting,
What? I don't even know what this is.
they were expecting a couple hundred people at this, and they had a couple thousand the first year,
Hmm.
but.
And what did they do?
Basically, they wet down the road.
Oh my
They have the
goodness.
cars come in and they spin out their tires as fast as they can and burn it off as much smoke as they can on those tires and wear them down.
That's
And
why we do it in the
it's a
summer.
contest essentially. It was kind of part of the cruising in the past. This time it was not tied to the cruising date wise. But they do it. We've done it for 3 years. It's the third year. Third year. Yeah, it's a really fun event.
Do they have to pay money to, do we make money off of this?
Where's the RSL?
All in
It's
Logan
over by
City.
We have a couple.
We've gotta
So
get
that's
our-
interesing. I have never heard of
Gotta
this.
build
I've
our
lived here for a long time.
restaurant.
It's just
I
been the
think I'm
past 3
staying
years.
away.
The other things you probably have heard of is Pioneer Day, July 25th. The parade route is changed a little bit this year. If you know, and the parade is massive. It's the biggest one in the valley. It's been that way for years. It is changing. It usually ends at Mountain View Park down here. Just so you know, and in case anybody asks, it is going to continue down 1200 East. And it's going to end kind of at this intersection. The floats will disperse from there. And all the activities will be at Elk Ridge.
I think that's a great change
That is a
to
great
be at Elk
change.
Ridge. That's
More
really a good
space.
idea.
More space.
Well, yeah. Plus there's shade at Elk Ridge.
Do you know,
The other thing is the groundbreaking.
Oh,
So
yes.
That was
Mhm.
pretty solidified. The groundbreaking for the library and city office would be,
July 18th. Uh-huh.
July 18th.
I won't-
the ceremony.
I won't be-
The actual-
That's good.
Well, I'm gonna miss it all, but have fun, everybody.
Yep.
Is that
First day.
building here in this area or where is it?
Yes. So it will be, the community center will go right out through this wall. And the library will expand. Where we're here right now will be a children's library section. Community center will come out through there and there'll be event type spaces and different things, multi-use programming. The city office will be just kind of where that access road for the police is. That will be the city office. And just something to note on that, if you get questions, the city office is entirely donations, which is the reason it's going forward. Primarily one very generous donor helping to make that happen. And also we're going through a process to make sure it stays in that budget as well. We're cutting quite a lot of things, but it's going to be better than the city office we have now. The city council rooms will be attached to that instead of the library as well. So it'll be new council and planning commission rooms. It won't be anything fancy. And we're cutting a lot of like any trim and things that would make it super nice, be kind of bare bones, unfinished basement. It'll look nice, classy, but we're definitely doing it on a shoestring budget. And Lundahl is the builder who was selected. They've been fantastic in helping us find those cost saving measures that aren't going to be detrimental to the future. Yeah, it's been really good. The community center is basically a bond that's being paid for kind of out of the Friends endowment, the Thorn endowment. So that's another thing to know. None of these buildings are coming out of the general fund. None of these buildings are coming out of taxpayer bonds, things like that. It's funding sources. We already have donors, and the Friends of the Library is big in this. And they'll do some fundraising efforts as well. The library will have a lot of events. Keep an eye out for those. Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing. We wouldn't probably be pulling the trigger or going so quickly on these projects if we didn't have a lot of generous people and funding options here in
Awesome.
the city. So, but it'll be good. It'll be
So-
good benefit.
I have to tell you, when we first moved here, and this is going to date me,
Mhm.
but the library was a little tiny room on the east of the city council building. I mean,
Mhm.
the city offices, that was the first library. So we've really improved since then.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
So you've cut
Good.
out all the Italian marble then from.
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
Italian marble, the leather, the big
Okay.
skylights for the seats, the fancy light fixtures and chandeliers. Those are, yeah.
So is the groundbreaking actually like an event that we should try to attend?
Yes,
here
yeah.
then?
If you're
Okay.
around, that'd be great. They'll have the contractors there. Deloy will be there. The city will be there. We'll have golden shovels. It'll be great.
Awesome.
Okay.
So, and I don't know actual construction and timeline. It's really tough right now, just with materials and all the other things that come with the day and age we live in, the market we live in right now. So, but we are hoping to get that city office built first. The community center is kind of still in design phase, but that will come after. And library renovation. So all of it will be renovated, sort of thing. So that's a
Great.
pretty key thing to know. One other final note, staff business, just a heads up on water. The water department did say that use is about 20% down this year. So just good job. That doesn't mean everybody open the floodgates, but just if people ask, I know everybody gets tired of cut back, do more, cut back, do more. People ask, say, hey, good job, keep it up. We're keeping it cut back, and next year our well will be drilled, hopefully, and up and running. Hopefully we'll have a whole bunch of water that's ready. I think it should, with all the studies they've done, but you just never know with wells. And we'll be able to go from there. But this year in particular was critical, and the residents and businesses have stepped up to the plate. One highlight of that is this week, actually, 2 a.m., a water line main broke on 19th. Our water department, utilities department, they were out there at 2 a.m. trying to shut valves, stop flooding. There was flooding. They're trying to make it not as bad, and hopefully make it not getting worse. 2 million gallons we lost because it was a 12-inch main
No.
in that flooded a couple of houses. They were working early in the morning, 2 a.m. to 8 p.m. To get that patched. But basically, in the utilities department, they basically said if it was not leveled out, so we have our 2-day watering that keeps the reservoirs at a consistent level. If it wasn't leveled out like it has been, and say it was one of the days that was really a dip, back when you could water on whichever day, sometimes the days would line up perfect and everybody's sprinklers would go on the same day. That could have been a disaster, and we could have just been out of water. But because we had leveled it off, we had the days, people have been following the restrictions pretty well, use is down, that water was lost, we were able to refill the reservoirs, and everything was good. So if you see a utilities department worker, a streets department worker, tell them thanks. They did a great job fixing that leak as fast as they could. It was not a great situation. The road's gonna be ripped up for a while, but it was impressive, the work they did, and also your neighbors for cutting back on water.
Quick question. What is there a timeline for replacing these water lines, original water lines like that one? That's probably an original water line coming down through there.
Yeah,
How
no,
old is it?
and it's funny because there are some water lines that we do have and get replaced. One of the big ones was right along in Emily's neighborhood, and they replaced the whole road, but a big part of it was getting that water line. So they have it all tracked on the age of water lines and where they need to replace. Main Street in front of Cal Ranch is probably the next big project we need to take on. This one wasn't on that list, but sometimes things just break.
Right.
And they don't know if it was just bedded on a rock wrong, or what happened. But it had a hole in it about this size and then cracked a whole length. I think we had to
Wow.
replace 18 feet of 12-inch pipe, which is a lot, and heavy pipe as well. So
And this is 19th North?
19th North.
Do they track water going, water stubs going to new subdivisions too then? Like I know that subdivision on 6th East that Visionary Homes is putting in at
Mhm.
about like 20th North, 19th to 20th North.
Yeah.
I've seen water just like gushing out of something there for several days now, like just pooling in big mud
Yeah.
pools and.
I'll have to check with Jordan on that. Typically, if something's gushing out, is it coming out of is it bubbling up out of the storm drains?
No,
gutters, or
it
is it-
looks like it's on the stubs. It's actually coming from the stubs on the lots and then it comes down into their collection pools. They're right on Sixth East.
Huh.
But there's a lot of water there.
Okay, I'll have to reach out to Jordan and let know. A lot of times it's irrigation lines that are going
And that
somewhere else,
could
but
be,
this is
yeah.
not. It kind of sounds like it might not be that. I'll have to check with Jordan and Zach and make sure they go down and look at it. I appreciate that tip. I'll
Yeah.
have them check it out. Hopefully it's irrigation. It's just going to somebody down the ditch. But if it's not, we need to get that figured out as quick as we can. So thanks for bringing
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And that is it as far as
Okay.
staff business. Sorry, that was a little bit longer than usual.
No, that's good. Next meeting, Spencer, 2 weeks from now.
Yes, so we
Okay.
will have a meeting 2 weeks from now. We will have a development plan for the 6-lot subdivision just north of Aspen Meadows. That one that had a rezone request, but now then they just went back to 6 lots. They've got the development plan with their secondary water, things like that. They didn't get it in time. It was going to be tonight, but they didn't get it in time to me, so we pushed it.
Oh, no
Okay.
wonder I missed it.
I won't be here, but everybody else can.
I actually will not
Do
be
we-
here for the 21st either.
Okay, I'm out of
Okay.
town. Anybody else gonna be here?
Spencer, is that your last?
I'll be
That's,
here for the first
That's the
meeting
night
in
of the
August. as
burnout?
well.
Okay, good.
So,
Okay,
oh.
all right. Well, we
I'll
have
be
a
like
motion to
energized,
adjourn.
Ready.
Madam Chairman, I move we adjourn.
I
Here,
second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Karen and Kenny. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the festivities.
Then what day do we go to? Then we go to August.